Today I have Louis Harris, who's a Team GB player in Padel. He's number 3 in Team GB and number 1 in LTA. So, Louis Harris, welcome to the BricksToRiches podcast.
Thanks for having me, mate. Pleasure to be here.
And thanks so much for playing 3 hours of paddle with me. I'm absolutely exhausted.
You tired us out. You tired us out as well.
And you look fresh.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep on playing with you. It's your second time in Manchester.
Yeah.
And one thing you taught me, the more I play with good players, the more I learn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Best way to improve.
Yeah. And what I learned today is the basics. Just hold the racket up.
Yeah.
Rather than holding it down, hold it up. Because once you hold it up, you can get into movement quicker. I'm going to master that. I have to drill that into my brain.
Absolutely. Definitely the biggest thing to work on for you.
Yeah, once I've got that, then we work on other things. But that's the basic. It's like when you build a house, you have to have the foundation.
You need that foundation, exactly.
Yeah, and once you've got the foundation, then you start putting other floors on it.
Exactly.
So, welcome to Manchester. How are you finding it?
It's good. It's good.
Second time?
Probably third or fourth, maybe fourth, I think.
Is it?
We come here for a few pro-ams. We've done a few pro-am paddle tours here. Obviously came up last time with you.
Yeah.
Come up here again. So, yeah, it's good. The scene's big now for paddle, isn't it? There's
Exactly.
so many courts and so many clubs in Manchester.
And Carbon's the biggest paddle club in UK.
That's the biggest, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's got 20 courts. It's got on the other side.
I didn't even see the other side of it. Yeah,
It's huge.
yeah. So it goes
People
to show.
come in there all the time now.
Really nice club though.
Yeah. Cold though today.
Fresh.
Okay. So, Louis Harris, I'll cut to the chase. I want to ask you some viral questions about paddle. What's the biggest lie people believe about playing paddle for Team GB level?
The biggest lie.
Yeah.
I'd say at the moment, the biggest lie would probably be in thinking that every player is full-time, like a full-time athlete.
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that the average person probably wouldn't know. The majority of us still work, whether that's full-time, part-time. We have a couple of players that are just playing, but I think people would be surprised into how often we play.
But if paddle had a lot more money, like footballers,
Yeah.
I know footballers personally, they make good money. Some make 100 grand, some make £500,000 a week.
Yeah.
If a paddle had that sort of money, then they wouldn't need to work. They could just focus purely on paddle.
Exactly. And then the level would go up and it would be more competitive to get in the team and whatnot. But, paddle's growing fast, but we're not on that level yet, right? Where the players are earning good money. Yeah.
Because obviously everyone's got bills to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
everyone's living a normal life, right?
Yeah,
outside of
exactly.
the playing. So I say that's probably the biggest thing that the average person probably wouldn't think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in order to, would you say paddle's harder or tennis? Because people always say tennis is harder. I think paddle's quite tough because you have to learn a lot of shots.
It is, but I think tennis is more demanding. I think overall, if you want to make it in tennis, as well, you got to go off how many people play, and it's more demanding physically. I do think it is a harder sport. Paddle's hard in its own way, but I think you've only got to look at how many players are out there that are a really good level that haven't been playing long. That doesn't exist in tennis, right? You can't do it. You have to start when you're young and play a long time. So, yeah, it's its own sport. It is difficult, but I think it is fair to say that tennis is a little bit harder. Yeah.
And also, how many years do you think England is behind other countries like Spain and Argentina? How many years would you say?
I mean, if you're comparing Spain and Argentina, we're very far. I mean, you're talking probably, it's hard to give it a number, but at least 15 years, easily. You got to think the players that are Spanish, Argentina, they've been playing since they were like 3-4 years old, right? Where there's still people in the UK that haven't heard of the sport. So the growth is great. It's growing fast, but yeah, we're miles away from Spain and Argentina.
Would you say a 10-year gap or 5-year gap?
I'd say over 10. I'd say closer to 15.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to think, majority of us players for Team GB, we've either, grown up in Spain, spent a lot of time in Spain, had access to that type of coaching.
Yeah.
There's no one that's born and bred in the UK that is at that level, right? Like, our best players are the ones that have really spent the most amount of time in Spain. So that tells you everything.
Because, I played with you, I played with your colleagues, Christian, Medina Murphy, Ben Phillips.
Yeah.
So you can only, if you want to improve in the UK, you can only play between yourselves.
Exactly.
You can't play with people like me because I'm not your level.
Yeah.
So you'll never improve.
It's like you were saying, right? The best way to improve is playing better people.
Yeah.
That's hard for us. And, like you mentioned, some of our players, Christian's a good example. He doesn't live in the UK.
Yeah.
I only recently moved back a year ago. Before then, I was living in Spain. We have other players living abroad. The youngsters now who want to improve have gone to Spain to train. So at the end of the day, there's not really much here to improve. So it's more for the amateur level, the lower level. That's great because you're always going to have someone better. But that's where we're trying to set that foundation up now to hopefully in maybe 10, 15 years have these players that started in paddle and have made it all the way.
I think once paddle goes to Olympics and lots of other countries get into it, like it's getting big in China, India, these big populations, then it'll get more money will be involved then.
Absolutely. More exposure and people will start younger and,
What's the most brutal moment in your career, Louis, that you faced in paddle that made you ever want to quit? Like sometimes people say, I've had enough, I don't want paddle anymore. Have you ever had that thought?
I wouldn't say it got to that point. I'd say definitely in the sort of level that I'm at ranking wise, it's tough in terms of you have to accept that you're going to be at a loss, financially, and you got to accept it's going to take you quite a while to kind of get where you want to be. That was, part of the reasons why I moved to the UK to sort of have more things going on than just competing. Like you said, the reality of it at the moment is someone of my level, even though I'm high ranked in the UK, worldwide, it's not like you're making a full career out of it. So you've got to accept that in the moment. Of course, I'm always inspiring to be better and that'll be the goal, but you've kind of got to take it on the chin a little bit and do other things at the same time. So I'd say that was probably it's not an easy thing to accept, right? You want to just commit full time, but like we spoke about before, you've got to live, right? So
in every sport, there's politics and favouritism.
Yeah.
And in paddle, have you ever faced favouritism politics? Like somebody might choose another player when you're better than them. Have you ever come across that?
It's definitely a thing.
Even in paddle?
Even in paddle, 100%. It happens in any sport. I've played quite a few sports and you're always going to get, certain coaches or players that, have a clique or, like you said, it gets political. That happens in every sport and at every level, right? A lower level, higher level. I say I've been quite fortunate to where it hasn't affected me negatively. I definitely say I've seen it around me. But I've been lucky enough that, I don't feel hard done by. I don't think I've ever been on the back end of it.
It happens in every sport.
Every sport.
It happens because of colour, religion.
Anything. Favouritism, money, it's all sorts of things.
But if you're really good at it, then you'll eventually shine anyway.
Well, this is
talent breaks through politics.
Absolutely. This is what I say to everyone who's ever kind of brought that up, right? Because there's a lot of players in the UK who potentially feel they're at that level where they've got left out. At the end of the day, if you're the best, you're the best, right? Like, these sort of cliquey decisions never get done by the best player not being picked. It's always that, he's close, he's good, but is he good enough to, to clear any of those sort of issues or doubts? So I think the best way, like you said, is, be as best you can. If you're the best player, you're not going to get stuck in.
You're going to shine. You're going
to shine. You're going to outclear. It's the people that are on the edge that get caught in the fire.
I agree with that. What's the biggest sacrifice you've made for paddle that some people might think it's too much? Like you left Spain to be here in this weather. It's cold. Look how cold it was today in the paddle court in Manchester.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in Dubai right now than the cold.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest sacrifice that you made for paddle?
I think it's kind of touching on what we said. It's mainly that financial side, right? Where, you sacrifice earning a good living or saving or potentially things like going on holiday. Obviously you can't be doing that if you're traveling a lot. Maybe going out with friends. Obviously you got to prioritize training and staying in, which at the end of the day can be seen as a luxury. I think any sport, if you want to make it, those are some of the basic ones you just got to do, right? But that comes with it. Nothing comes easy. So I'd say it's things like that. I've been lucky there hasn't been anything major. So I wouldn't complain too much.
Who's the most overrated player you've ever played opposite? Who thinks is really good? Who's not? For me, because obviously I'm playing at club level, and amateur. Everyone thinks they're really amazing at platonic. Some people have ratings of 5 when I play them. I think they're terrible. They're not even 3. They're worse than me.
Yeah.
So who's the most overrated you played in your professional paddle?
That's a tough question. I mean, obviously it gets harder as you go up in the rankings because you're now no longer using platonic rankings, right? But I mean, I don't want to single anybody out, but I'd say there's definitely a lot of players who, maybe have got a lot of international points a certain way, which could be, paying partners to play and then claiming they're a certain level because of their world ranking, which in paddle at the moment is doable, right? In other sports, that isn't an option. But up until sort of the past year, if you played all the tournaments, the really, far away ones, you paid your partner to play, you could climb the rankings without necessarily being that good. So there's definitely been instances where you come up against someone like that, and obviously when you're playing them, you feel very comfortable. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to single anybody out, but it happens at every level, right? I think everybody thinks they're better than what they are.
Yes.
And depending on their personality, they're going to try and show that more or less, right? So, yeah.
I know this guy, he basically plays with a guy from Manchester, Adam, my coach, Platonic, he's 6.
Right.
Sandy from the paddle school said Adam's probably about a 5.
Yeah.
And he's only Platonic level 2, but he plays with him every paddle match,
Right.
and he pays him just to rank up his Platonic rating. So that's
Well, there we
deluded.
go.
That's
Yeah.
deluded.
But that's silly, right? Why would you want to do
Just
that?
for ego.
People do
do-
it. People
but
do
it's
it.
the ego.
Yeah. And look, I work in a paddle club, and people come up to me all the time, and they're like, "Oh, can you change my ranking? Or did you see me play today? And what's my level? What's my level?" And I think it's a bit of an issue at the moment in the UK where people are too worried about their level as a number, right?
Yeah.
We do leveling sessions where we level them, and when you tell them, it's like, you don't need to worry if you're a 2 or a 3. You just need to be improving, right? Focus on what your coach is telling you, and
I'd rather
improve,
turn up
but
to a game, Louis, and people think I'm a 2 and I play level 3, 4.
than
That's
the other
better.
way around. Exactly.
I'd rather do that way than play higher than the people think I'm not
Put it
good.
this way: at the end of the day, I think anyone who wants to be a good paddle player, you'll know you're good when you're not using a Platonic ranking, right? I think that's the best way to put it is, PaddleMate and Platonic are great systems, but when you reach a certain level, you're not using it, right? You're not playing these competitive levels to boost your ranking. So I'd say that's a true tell is if you're a good player, is if you don't use that or you don't need to go off that.
Exactly.
That's a better tell in what your actual level is.
If paddle, Louis, didn't become a financially viable sport in the UK, would you still chase it or walk away from it? Would you still be in the business of paddle?
I'd still be involved in it for sure. I think at the same time, you've got to be realistic, right? You've got to be smart. If it gets to the point where, you're definitely not going to progress and you can't financially make a living, you've got to make a decision,
you've
right?
got to put food on the table.
You've got to put food on the table, and especially depending on where you are in your life, your age, a lot of factors. I'm lucky that I'm still young at the moment.
Yeah.
I've kind of got a few more years where I can have that freedom, but it gets to a point where you need to know whether you're going to make it or not, and that's self-belief. But also you've got to be realistic. If you're not there and you've been playing for a long time and you haven't done the results, maybe you've got to make the decision of continue playing, but not all in. You've got to also look at a business side, which is many ways to make money in paddle at the moment, especially in the UK. So I'd be involved, but if I could see that it wasn't happening and it wasn't worth it, I'd definitely be more than happy to kind of take a step back and get more stuck in the business side. Yeah, no issue with that.
And also, Louis, what do you think of paddle becoming oversupplied? For example, in England, there's 200,000 planning applications in different boroughs across the UK. And in Sweden, paddle's actually oversaturated and they're shutting paddle courts down.
Yeah.
Do you think that would happen in the UK? Because everyone thinks, oh, that guy's making money, I want to open a paddle court.
Yeah.
Loads of people ask me to open paddle courts. And one thing I've learned, the only future for paddle in England will probably be indoor because it's cold all the time.
Yeah.
External, outdoor ones won't work. What's your view?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be harder for it to happen in the UK. I think, there's clubs opening up. People are very keen, but I think because it's so much harder with planning permission and
the noise, people get upset by the noise.
People get upset with the noise, and I feel like investors are a little bit more cautious to invest compared to other countries based off what I'm hearing. So loads of clubs are opening. I think that the bigger issue would be there's a lot of people opening clubs who don't have a good idea of how to run a paddle club. But at the end of the day, even though there's loads of courts, there's still so many players, right? Especially in London, there's so many places where you cannot get a court at a certain time.
Even
You've
here
got
in
to book
Manchester.
super far in advance. And how many courts are here in Manchester? Loads, right? And it's still fully booked. So I think we're far away from that. Of course, the pricing could potentially be an issue if people get too carried away. But I think at the moment it's growing quick, but it's not getting out of hand.
I think the prices will probably drop eventually.
Probably eventually.
Yeah, because I book a court every day at Carbon, and that's one that we played on, 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
I book it every day and I use it. If I don't use it, I'll either cancel it or give it to my
Or give it
friends.
to someone.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Because you can't book it otherwise. I book it for the whole year in advance.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of things to happen, right? There's still no academies, right? There's even amateur academies, professional academies. There's still going to be a lot of gaps where clubs could be full by having new groups of people in, right? At the moment, it's still fairly Yeah, you got your lessons, your groups, your socials, but you know, if you look at other, like someone like Spain, just off academies alone, you've got loads of clubs just full. So I think we're okay for now. I think it's growing at a fair speed.
Something elite paddle players do that amateurs copy but shouldn't. So a lot of people will watch like Tapia Galan play paddle, and the average Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones on the local club will try and copy it.
Yeah.
What should they not do?
I mean, there's loads of things, right? I think going for winners when you're very far back. And I think also approaching the net too quickly at any point in the match, right? Of course, professional paddle now is played where, you know, you're kind of out of defense very quickly, right? They're able to play in sort of anywhere where when you teach a beginner, you call no man's land, right? I think it's important when you're first learning to kind of respect that a little bit more. Prioritize getting to the net, but without rushing.
Yeah,
you know,
so
you
be
need
patient,
to learn to take your time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, unless you have to, take your time with it. I see a lot of people sort of drifting in that zone and looking to go in and volley and block and then smash the ball. And it's all stuff we want to do. And yeah, you're going to see it a lot of professional level. But obviously what they haven't seen is how many years it took them to be able to do that. It's like any sport, right? You have to work your way up.
Like you said to me, something nice when we were walking up to the studio, that rather than just playing games and try and win the game, just spend your time having lessons and get the technique right and then play the game.
Absolutely. You got to find the balance, right? Everyone takes on information in different ways, but it's easy to get carried away. It's a great sport. It's super addictive. But if you look at the best players, they've done a lot of training to be able to then put it in a match, right? The things they do, they're not thinking about it in a match. It just happens
autopilot.
Naturally. Yeah, it's like any sport, right? It's absolutely any sport. I just think where it's very easy to just go and play a match, you can get carried away with that and you end up creating a lot of bad habits. So it's finding that balance between doing a few days training, then putting it in practice in a match and progressing it from there.
Also, Louis, paddle is seen as a rich person's sport.
Yeah.
Especially London.
Yeah.
Courts are more expensive. Coaching's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So how does the average person play paddle? They can't afford it.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's weird for me because, like I said, I started playing paddle in Spain where it's very cheap. It still is quite cheap.
Yes.
So
the court cost is cheap. The lessons are cheap.
Everything is cheap, right? Yeah. So growing up, it never seemed that way, right? It was, if anything, it was the other way around, where it was a very casual sport. Coming here, the prices are expensive, but I just feel like so is everything, right? You compare anything else, the cost of living here compared to Spain or these other countries is so much more expensive. So relative to that, and if you look at how it's still quite exclusive, right, in terms of there's not that many coaches, and potentially some of the coaches that they are there are maybe high ranked, that's gonna cause the price to be very high, right? Like you were saying, eventually the price will probably come down when there's more clubs, more courts, to the fact where they're not fully booked all the time. But like anything new, if it's in high demand, the price is going to be up.
Yeah, if you look at, for example, a coach in Manchester charged about £60 to £80 for an hour.
Yeah.
And if you look at Alfonso in Rocket Paddle, he charges about £150.
Yeah. Yeah, it's expensive. It's expensive. But then that's in Battersea, right, where everything around that area is expensive, right? Like property is crazy. The rest, everything around that place is expensive. So, yeah, some places it can set you back, but you can also go to other areas where it's cheaper, right? You can go to socials and, my club, if you're a student, you get like free racket rental, things like that. There are ways where clubs are trying to help off-peak and, memberships. That's also still to come. But it's like we were speaking about before. I think people are kind of opening a clubs, trying to earn as much money as they can. But eventually there'll be a little bit more of a community. And, the business owner's got to earn money, but eventually it'll be more about, building that community, and I think it'll level out a lot.
Good. I think it's a good way to help younger kids off the streets.
Yeah.
And also to help kids like at the Gen Z at the moment, they're always on the phone playing computer games.
Yeah.
If they play paddle and they don't go on the streets, take drugs, take alcohol, I think paddle's a good way to. Maybe the government should help.
Absolutely. And I think they will. I think eventually they will. And again, like I keep saying, you've got to look at other sports as well. It happens in everywhere. There's places where you can go and it'll be very expensive to play tennis.
Yeah.
There's places where you go for free.
Yeah, like I go to Queens all the time in London. That's expensive.
It's expensive, but you could go to a park and play for free. Yeah, exactly. The quality is not going to be as good, but you can still play, right? So the same will happen in paddle.
Okay, and one other question. If you could change one thing about British paddle tomorrow, what would upset people most but will help people in the long term? So what would you change?
That would upset people.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. To be honest, I think what we were talking about, I'd almost get rid of these ranking systems at the moment at an amateur level. I think even though it's harder to do, I feel like it's better when if you're consistently playing at a club, let that club give you a level. Some clubs do this, but it would be a better system to do. So you always go to the same club, so it's a consistent level. Anyone new coming in has to do some type of leveling session with the coach. Because at the moment it's all up in the air, right? You got new people coming, claiming they're a certain level and playing competitive matches or refusing to play a match if it's going to change their point system. I think that's kind of ruining a little bit the fun side of the sport, especially when you're starting. You've got to be having fun.
Exactly.
I think people who've only been playing for 2-3 months are more worried about losing a match because of their platonic level rather than getting better and enjoying with their mates.
You shouldn't have an ego.
Yeah, I think at an amateur level, people need to be enjoying the sport much more.
I know this guy, Louis, he makes fake profiles and ranks his rating.
Happens everywhere.
I think of how silly.
Yeah. I've had people join my lesson with a fake account because they want to be in, and it's, they'll put a higher level so they can join the lesson, and it happens, right? But I think that's the thing that's slightly ruining.
But you can see it through.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're an expert. You can see, looking at someone play, whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're only cheating themselves.
Exactly. But everyone's doing it. So I think that's holding a lot of people back.
That's an ego issue.
Yeah. And it takes the fun out of a lot of these matches, right? The people that are there to just have fun and try and get better, they're ruining it for them.
Exactly. So you should have to be true to yourself.